Rolling.
Okay.
How are you doing today, Wendy?
I'm good. Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you are the author of Killing Cupid.
I am.
I see that you brought it with you.
I did. Yes. This is my first book.
That's your first one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I seen that you had written a couple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have two that are out, but the second one I redid the cover as well.
Okay.
And I'm also editing it one more time and then re-uploading it as like a second edition.
Okay.
And then I've got actually 3 books that I'm working on. So one of them's the third in this series, and then 2 other ones. So
wow.
I know, it's really fun.
So let's tell me a little bit about yourself. Are you from the Lansing area, and do you do this full time? What do you do for work?
So I was born in Lansing, actually. Moved out to California, grew up out there. Came back after graduation from high school, went to Central, lived in Lansing. I was involved in politics for a while. And
how was that?
Well, it was fun. It was good, up until 2016, and then I kind of ducked out. So
yeah, that was a good time to duck out.
It was a good time to duck out. So, and I've done a little bit of everything in my life. I taught at Lansing Community College for 15 years.
Wow. What did you teach?
Public speaking and communication classes.
Okay. So you're probably going to listen to this podcast and be like, this guy's an idiot.
No, not at all. And so I ran a Red Cross chapter, and so I've done a variety of things. And I worked for 5 years with the military with families of soldiers who've died. And basically the theme kind of throughout my life was walking with people through hard times, kind of like that was the thread. Okay. And then I helped people run campaigns. I ran for office.
What did you run for?
State rep. I lost my primary by 400 votes.
Wow.
I know. And I was like up against the man. Like they spent double and what we did. And we had this grassroots scrappy campaign, and it was really fun.
Wow, that is cool.
Yeah.
So when did you run?
2014.
Okay.
So, and then I ran a statewide presidential primary campaign in 2016, and our candidate did not win the primary. But yeah. So, but I'm kind of over I'm not over politics, but I am over politics because it's so divisive. Like everybody's so angry.
It is. Yeah, it's very one-sided or the other.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's no way to thread the middle at all.
You're either on a team or you're not.
Right.
Part of the team.
Right. And so my tribe, my team at the time, like when I didn't go along with everything they wanted, they kind of I got death threats. Like
really?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Like it was pretty bad. So I was happy to duck out and be done with that. But then I didn't know what I was going to do because like my dad died. It was October 2016. And I lost my political career basically and my dad all within 3 weeks. And I was like, what am I going to do? So I sat around and tried to figure it out for a while. And then I decided to go into real estate because I'd always wanted to do real estate. So I've been doing real estate for now since then.
Wow. And you do that in the Lansing area?
I do it. Actually, I tell my clients I'll drive for cool people because I work mostly by referral. Okay. And I have a network that's very broad. So we work anywhere from the highest will go probably Saginaw. Okay. Although I did list a house up by Mount Pleasant, but for a listing, I just went up there twice, and then we've sold houses in Monroe all the way over. I'm gonna be listing a house in Jackson and a lot of Lansing work. So yeah.
So what is that industry like right now? Because I know that when I bought my house 5 years ago, like I told you, it was the market seemed normal, but now it's it seems super inflated. Would you agree with that?
So it's a little bit weird. It is because there's an inventory shortage, and we don't really know what's going to happen. There's only been 2 times in American history where a housing crash has coincided with an economy crash, and we just happen to have lived through one, right? So millennials were super gun shy about buying houses, and it's taken a long time for them to start to feel comfortable with doing that. And then at the same time, we have baby boomers wanting to downsize and compete for those same starter home ranches that the millennials are trying to buy into.
Wow.
And they're
not thought about that.
Yeah. And they're not building as many new homes because there's so many regulations that the profit margins aren't there. So that's why you're seeing so many townhomes, row houses, things like that pop up because they can't, the profit margins aren't there to build those little 1950s, houses. Right. So I think that we're headed towards a situation where it's going to be like Canada, where there's the ceiling is coming up on all the housing prices. Okay. And it'll cost the housing, you won't be able to buy houses for under a certain amount. They just won't exist.
That kind of seems like that's what's happening right now.
It is.
And I was actually just talking to a friend of mine at work because he just got his realtor's license, and he was like, it's not going to crash because there's a lack of houses right now. There's not.
Well, and I think the only thing that could happen, and there's a couple of different dynamics. So, number one, I think there was a time when it was really beneficial to have a assumable mortgage. Which means like if you had a VA mortgage at like 3%, as long as I was eligible for a VA mortgage at 3%, I could assume your mortgage and keep that 3% interest rate. So those are the kinds of things that I'd be telling my buyers, like, listen, get an FHA or a VA mortgage that's assumable if you can, because that's going to make if it is a buyer's market, then that's going to make those buyers want your house, right? If the interest rates go up. So, and then I've listened to people who are talking about how if interest rates go up, purchase power goes down. So that could affect housing prices, but I don't know if none of that's going to be like catastrophic enough to tip it over like what we went through in the crash.
Right.
There's a natural ebb and flow.
Yeah.
Usually it's every 7 years when the Fed isn't manipulating the money system.
Yeah.
There's a natural 7-year flow, but the Feds have been all messing with everything for so long now.
Right.
It's kind of artificial.
Yeah.
So anybody who thinks they know exactly what's going to happen, they don't, including me. So
I think it's kind of concerning though, because like somebody who has a decent job like myself, it's difficult to afford to buy a house, like especially for a family. I mean,
for sure.
Even like a starter home is $100,000.
Well, and wages, like if you look at inflation, inflation's a legitimate issue because we've been printing money and living kind of high off the hog for a long time in our country. And that's going to come back to bite us. And there's nothing we can do about that. It is what it is, right? That's a natural consequence. But wage inflation has absolutely not caught up with or stayed current with inflation for products and services and houses. It just hasn't. So that's why you have to have two parents working.
Yeah.
Because the wages have not kept up. So I think we will see like more multi-generational families potentially. I think things that are coming in the future, we're going to have a population shortage.
Think so?
I do.
I think what do you think is going to cause that?
In 50 years? The fact that like the Gen Zs don't want to have kids, that millennial, we're not even replacing people in America right now. We're not replacing people. We're having less children than are currently in the country.
That is true.
And so if that continues, people are like, oh, all these other countries offer all these benefits. Yeah, because they don't have any babies. Like they're trying to bribe their citizens to have babies. We'll give you so much time off, right?
Right.
And I never really thought about it that way until I read something about the population shortage that's coming in America. And we are going to have an interesting situation because we have this big Social Security system that's built like an upside down pyramid. You know what I mean? That's like very top heavy. And the point's getting finer.
Yeah.
So, I think it's going to be interesting. But home ownership, statistically over time, home ownership has always been something that leads you to be wealthier because of all the things it takes to own a home, the frame of mind that you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you own a home, you want to put equity into it.
You do.
You want to make it nicer.
And you want to be able to qualify. So if you qualify for a home, you're probably going to have the rest of your life a little bit in order as well. At
Hopefully.
least for a minute. At least until you get closed,
Right.
But I think it'll be interesting. But, I really we love serving our families. Like we serve families all across the area. Like I said, I have a team. We work mostly by referral. We try to give a concierge experience. We do free staging. We always use professional pictures, which makes me crazy because Lansing does not. And I would, even if it was a $100,000 house, I'm sending out my photographer.
Really?
100%. Like, I don't think there's any excuse not to. So I hate the pictures that I look at the MLS and I'm like, dude, come on. It costs like $100. Send your professional photographer out, So we try to give really high level service.
Yeah.
And and I like it, you know what I mean? But this is more like my creative passion.
Okay.
And so it gives my brain somewhere to go and when it spins off.
I imagine having to be involved in some of the careers that you've had, you've had to find a hobby to kind of, I don't know, like channel your energy and everything going on. That's a good way to escape, right? Reality.
Yeah. And I'm super high energy. So when I was building my team in 2019, like we went into 2020 with 5 agents and 2 admins. And I bought the URL, we had the branding, we had all the systems in place. And then 2020 happened. But I was driving my staff crazy because I was like all in, and I have all these ideas all the time about how to serve the community, because we do a lot of community outreach and events for our clients and things like that. We're doing a free movie of HOP, like on the 16th.
I seen that. Mm-hmm. Seen you post something about that.
Yeah, and I just sent it out to the foster parent closet, because we do a lot with them.
Oh, okay.
So they can invite the foster and adoptive families in Limings County to come out for free.
Cool.
And we love to serve. So, but I was driving my like when the pandemic happened, I'm like, let's do a food drive for gleaners. Not only that, let's do a parade through this big subdivision, and let's buy blow up costumes. So I bought like 15 blow up costumes, and we all like went and did this big thing because Wendy had this idea. So, it's beneficial to everybody in my life if I have another outlet to dump all that creativity into.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. Now, when did that creativity take place? Have you always written? When did that start?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have always written things. However, for so long, I was trying to be serious, and I was writing all this nonfiction.
Okay.
Because I taught communication. I did training. I traveled across the country and did training to military families about communication. And they're like, where's your book? Where's your book? So I would sit down and try to write this book. But with nonfiction, like, as soon as you write a nonfiction book and it does anything, that's you.
Yeah.
And I was like, do I want to be defined by something? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Not that I'm above it. I just don't want to be limited.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, like you said, you had to go back and re-edit that book.
Yeah. So
imagine what you would want. This episode is brought to you by Red Bike Delivery. This delivery service operates only using battery-powered, eco-friendly transportation. Red Bike Delivery is there for all your delivery needs, whether it's dinner for the family, flowers for your partner, or new houseplants for your new collection. Red Bike Delivery will gladly deliver those and everything in between. So what are you waiting for? Check out Red Bike Delivery on Facebook or Instagram for more information. Red Bike Delivery, because there's only one Earth. If it was your story.
Yeah. Well, and even like just a communication book. It's like,
oh, right.
You know, because I started one that was like, every campaign needs a mom. I was going to write about like the value of having like older women on the campaign and what they think of, like bug spray and Band-Aids and things like that for your volunteers, And I was going to write something about like confessions of a failed superwoman, about how women are trying to do it all. And we were meant to really have a village, right. A community of neighbors and extended family. We don't have that. We don't see our cousins anymore.
Yeah.
And actually, like in the summer of 2019, I actually did start writing it. That was my last book I was going to try to write, and it was called Longing for a Zombie Apocalypse.
That sounds like you were calling a pandemic on.
Yeah, and it was about the need, like our lack of connection with our neighbors, our lack of connection with family, our lack of the ROI wasn't there, right? Because we didn't need each other anymore.
Yeah.
And so we were just so isolated. And there was just some other issues that I like talked about in the book, but it was pretty fascinating. And then in the pandemic, I didn't even get to finish it. 'Cause I'm like, oh, never mind. Here we go. Let's go.
That's one thing about the pandemic. Like I know for me, I work at General Motors, and so does my wife. We worked before the pandemic, like so much overtime consistently. It was like 6 days a week.
Yeah, because part of your salary.
Yeah,
your lifestyle.
9 to 10, hours a day. And it's just like, it was nonstop over and over and over again. It just seemed like life was so fast paced and you can never just keep up with it.
Right.
And then the pandemic happened and it's like everything slowed down. I felt like it was so important.
Yeah, and I do too. I think we were going off a cliff.
I agree. It seemed like we were going there quick.
We were. And it was like speeding up. And it's like, how many generations in this world have ever gotten the opportunity to just stop.
Yeah.
And then choose, and unfortunately it didn't always bring out the best in people because people were all freaking out and scared and trying to control things they couldn't control. And, but I mean, we got a chance to just kind of think for a second, you know?
A lot of people took that time like, okay, do I want to work the job I'm working? Do I want to quit? Do I want to start a new hobby? Do
I want to be here? Like,
right.
Do I working remote? My husband now works from home.
Wow.
And so people are moving to be near family. They're moving because they want to.
Yeah.
And they're moving not to move closer to the job necessarily, but they're moving to be closer to other things, people, locations, and the job just goes with them.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
It is cool.
So, but in 2021, in January 2021, our family, like, limped across the finish line of 2020. Like I have 4 kids and like 2 of them were really struggling. And it was very tough fall of 2020. So we got into 2021 and I was just like real estate was a little slow. And I'm like, cause we were so busy in 2020 selling houses. No, it was crazy. I'm like, I just put in earphones and I was teaching myself how to oil paint, which I'm extremely mediocre at, but I bought all the oil paint they had apparently at Michael's and then I was listening to books and all these epic fantasies that I love to listen to. I don't write fantasy because that's really a commitment that I don't want to make.
Yeah.
But I was listening to all these books and I was just like, man. And then I started getting these scenes in my head and I was like, oh. And like one of the first scenes I got in my head that was really good and like solid, like I just visualize it, was actually I'm writing a book called The Adventures of Sally and Pearl. And that's the name of my grandma and my great grandma. And it's about these old ladies who go down and end up breaking up a drug cartel in Mexico.
Wow.
But and it's like the Flamingo Singles who are like a cover for this drug cartel, drug mule, old ladies who do carry-ons and don't get checked.
That's a really good idea for a book.
Yeah, it's really going to be fun. Like they're going to have, it's so fun. They do she punches a pelican. They do all these high speed chases. And, but the first scene I had was actually a little bit weird because my humor was a little dark, but it's in there. And it's, Sally, whose husband Harold was kind of a jerk. And she's sitting there in the funeral and she's like, I don't know how this popped into my head. It just did. And she's like talking to the funeral director and she's like, Harold's been a side sleeper his entire life and he needs to be a side sleeper in the casket. And she's like, he won't fit. And then like the very first, iteration, she's like, you need to make it happen. And he's like, we would have to break his shoulders. And she's like, I'm fine with that. And like, it was like, and she's a good wife, and it was like this, I'm like, but then like the idea of like this woman, like trying to like take back her life and trying to like, then has this quirky, best friend and this new chapter in her life. Right. So, but I actually, so that was like a scene and I would just write stuff down as I came up with these scenes.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really sure where they were going to go and I move them around, but this book, was really fun. It was, it's about love. And I, the 3 books they have that I'm writing, I have 2 that are written, ones I'm redoing and one I'm writing. They have mythology in them,
okay,
which I loved, like having some modern mythology.
Yeah. And
this one's really about love, whether it's a choice, whether it's just, what if Cupid gets it wrong?
Yeah.
Is it a choice? Is it like fate? Is it destiny? I wanted humor, you know what I mean? Like, and what's funny is that like, I have some pretty conservative friends who are like go to church and stuff, and the other covers were much darker and more dangerous than this one. But I think it's because my friends who were reading it were like super conservative Christian girls. They're like, "Oh, this is dangerous." But then I was listening to some other books, and I'm like, look at the cover, going, "No, it's not. Like that's not right at all. Like that looks like we're burning Chicago down. This is just like a little danger." But like, you know what I mean? And it's yeah, and so it's been really fun, and I got to research some different stuff. So for my little ADD brain, it was like awesome. Like there's some stuff in here about different technology that really exists, that they can use flashing lights to change the neurons in your brain.
Okay, that's real. Yeah, that's real.
It's real.
Yeah, and they it's like. Yeah, I know exactly. What's it called? It's
ERMD or something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's a real technology that gets used here. So, and like the second book, Hera's Revenge, is actually set in Brighton, and it has something in it called synesthesia. Synesthesia is real. It's where you can taste words or see music.
Really?
Or your letters have colors all the time. It's like where your senses get crossed, and it's a legitimate condition that people have. But in that particular book, it's a leftover power from the gods. And so it's kind of cool. Like, but I got to research.
That is cool.
So many things. Like, and I took all this history, like in the second, like in Hera's Revenge, I pulled in all this history and kind of rewrote it, like what really happened,
Yeah.
And it's good for my brain, like I said, to jump down these rabbit holes. And I didn't know much about mythology even.
Yeah, I was going to say, where did you learn about mythology?
Google. Like, I don't know where we learn about anything, right? I mean, YouTube and Google.
Yeah.
Whatever popped up, I'm like, oh, I wonder what this, yeah.
Wow. So when you're writing a book like this, what's your process? I mean, you said you were obviously painting one day and you kind of got some ideas and whatnot, and then you write things down and you kind of move it around.
So what I did, I actually had to learn how to do this. I had to learn how to write a book.
Yeah. How do you learn that?
So
other than Google?
Well, pretty much Google, podcasts, and YouTube.
Okay.
I mean, I literally just went out there and I bought a book called Save the Cat Writes a Novel, which is an amazing book that kind of lays out the 27 plot point structure. I got one of those little big pieces of sticky paper, divided it into 9 sections, and stick in little Post-it notes. And started to figure it out, figure out what would work, what didn't work. Looked at personality stuff for the characters, and would just start to fill it in as I went in terms of what might happen.
Yeah.
And some of it you just have to decide. You're in there, you're like, oh, okay, all right. So I guess that doesn't make sense for my character. Your character is kind of declare anarchy and don't do things that you thought they were going to do. They go do that because it doesn't make sense.
Right.
For your character, your character has to be natural, and they have to it has to make sense. So, so I usually start with a few scenes that I like. Mm-hmm. I don't write in linear order.
Right.
I write scenes as I think about something because I can visualize it and then write it.
Yeah.
I did a lot of talk to text.
That's a really good idea.
Yep, for sure. As long as it's understands you, which mine does not. It seems I'm speaking another language, so it's very rough. But I have a couple diction. I have a couple different things on here. I paid my kid to transcribe some stuff. I did just recordings and paid him to transcribe them because
that's cool.
I was trying to decide how to get this stuff out.
Yeah.
Because I could just talk through a scene.
Yeah.
And and it's very fun. Even on the way over here, I was recording something and I was driving because I had this idea about a girl who it just again popped in my head. She about a girl who's 17 and she goes and has these glossy pictures of herself that she signs and she goes and puts them up all over wherever there's a row of glossy pictures. She just has this obsession with leaving her mark and putting these glossy pictures up wherever they have those, so her pictures everywhere, so all across the country.
Wow.
So and it's weird. I don't know what that'll turn into.
Yeah.
But when I think about it, I just record it.
But it's something you can pull from your arsenal.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I use a program called Reedsy.
Okay.
Reedsy. Reedsy is a free online service where you can download and back it up too, but you can sort everything by chapter and move things around. And so I can go in and I know the 27 plot point structures. So my titles start off as what plot point that is. You know what I mean? And kind of reminds me what's happening.
Right. And
everybody's processed a little differently. I usually will go through and have the sticky notes because if I don't see it, I can't see it. I'll usually go through and I'll work through the first 2/3 of the book. And you get halfway through and it's the midpoint flip, where something has to happen where you find out, wait a minute, you know? And with Sally and Pearl, it's a dead body shows up, right? That's the flip. I usually don't know what's going to happen in that last section until I work through some of it, to see. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I'll just continue to fill it in as we go. So, and then at the end, I have to kind of pull the threads through and make sure there's not, hanging chads, missing little links over here. So to pull things through, and that's usually adding a line here, doing something there that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's kind of my process.
What has the feedback been like for your books?
So
other than the Christian people, well, that looks edgy.
Well, no, they liked it. They just thought the cover was yeah, that represents it. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, yeah, read some Sarah J. Maas. I think so. It's been when you're doing publishing, indie publishing, you have to learn how to do all of that, Amazon keywords and where to get a cover. I went on 99 Design. And I paid for these covers twice because I wanted to get it right.
Yeah.
But I had 100 covers designed for this book, submitted for me to choose from, and then work with those designers to get what I wanted. And I loved, this girl doesn't even do book covers typically, but I loved this art. I thought it was fun, contemporary, kind of spoke to, we need to talk about your aim. I loved that. So writing blurbs, all of it, learning how to go to ISBN and get the number on the back. We have to go get those and buy those.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And so there's an audiobook I paid for. This is on audio.
I was going to ask you.
It's on Audible, yeah.
So did you read it?
I did not. Oh. I don't have time for that. I hired somebody. I hired somebody actually from the UP.
Oh wow.
Who my cousin knew. So I'm oh, all right, cool. So yeah. So there's such a learning process, right?
Yeah.
And I've been learning as I go. And so my friends read it. They loved it, of course, because, you know, they're my friends. But then there were some people who read it that aren't my friends, and they loved it too. And it's not for everybody. It's not like I'm going to change you. You know, people right now like seem to want books that are going to change your life.
Yeah, self-help books.
It's not going to change your life. But it is a really fun escape. It's a fast read set in Chicago. It's great, you know?
Yeah.
And Hera's Revenge is the same way. So there's 3 books in this series that I'll be doing for sure. Hera's Revenge, as soon as I get the new cover, which is already done. I just need to get it uploaded. And then the third one is called Dethroning Dionysus. And that one's set in New York, and it's about a young influencer. And Dionysus was the god of like wine, but he had cults. So here's some things that you find when you're writing. So in Dionysus, Dethroning Dionysus, I was going to have a club that he had, and I was going to call it the Hellfire Club, because there was actually Hellfire Clubs in England that were in honor of him, kind of. They were kind of culty, like little secret Illuminati stuff going on in England throughout the years. There's been a lot of cults throughout the years in honor of Dionysus. So, but I was going to do Hellfire Club because that was what they were called, and I thought, that's awesome, right? So I go, and I'm looking in New York, doing some research about locations and things like that, because you have to do that. You know, I went so far as to call somebody at U of M for Hera's Revenge because I needed a room in a science building. I needed to know like what the room numbers are. Wow. How would I know? Right. I mean, I was trying to figure it out, and I just had to call somebody. But Hellfire Club, when I Googled Hellfire Club New York, it came up as a very popular club in the 70s. That was a very risque, I'll throw out the term, glory hole gay club in New York. And I'm like, well, we're probably not going to use that, right? So I had to change the name because you just kind of find that stuff out and learn as you go. But those 3 are really fun. And so the first one's about love, the second one's about forgiveness, and the third one's kind of about like your authenticity. So I want to have like a, you know, kind of a good underlying theme. Yeah. My other one, Sally and Pearl, that's really going to be fun. Like those girls are going to save Christmas. They're going on a cruise. Like I got plans for those ladies, right? And it's going to be Golden Girls meets Thelma and Louise. You know, it's going to be fun. And then the third book that I actually wrote the entire first draft of last year, and I'm just editing it, is called Standing Water. And that covers on too. It's so cool. And it is about a girl. It's about a small town in Michigan. It's kind of post-apocalyptic, because one of the things I always wanted to write, if I was going to write fiction, was what happened after the apocalypse. Like at the end of Hunger Games. They kind of show you like a little bit. Yeah. But I want to know like, what's it really like, right? At the end of that, when it all kind of settles down. So this is about that. It's about kind of, things are kind of a hot mess, but they're kind of back together. And this little town has a lake and a river and a dam. And the government has all the grid has gone up and down so many times that it's fried all the water purification systems. So you're not actually allowed to have your own personal water purification system. And there's huge water shortages throughout the country. And the state doesn't have any money because, you know, so addressing things like the availability of cars, like the idea that there's not the supply chain. It's kind of broken down because there's been a war and all this stuff. And so they're using all this.
Are you explaining 2023?
I know. I hope not. I was reading it. I'm like, I hope this isn't prophetic. But they like empty out all the, because people have died, but they empty out all of the storage units. And literally like that becomes our big box stores. Wow. It's just all resale stores because we have so much junk laying around. Right. That we have enough stuff for years. Right. We just have to use what we have. So
that is so creative.
Yeah, it was really fun to think about like, okay, so they don't have cell phones, but their landlines work because landlines would work even if an EMP came. Yeah. They have some cars, but they don't have a lot. You know, roads are sort of maintained, but the parking lots are all dust. Like the high school has a big willow tree growing in the middle of the 50-yard line because nobody goes to school anymore, you know, like that. So It's all very fascinating. And her mother works for the government as a senator for the state government. And she is like, she would be in New York, but she's home. She's working at the little Red Owl store in her small town. Anyway, the government, there's a problem because the government comes in and they're starting to take the water from small towns like theirs. They've targeted them to sell and distribute throughout the country. And they say it's for the water shortage, but they really just want the money. so that it's kind of like there's like some liberty issues, but environmental issues. And so it kind of threads that needle where everybody will be happy and there's romance and, you know, enemies and lovers kind of stuff. Not really lovers, but it's a YA, but yeah, but I really like it. And it's taking me longer because I'm making it like about the mother and the daughter dual track because they don't know what the other's doing. They don't know, like, they don't understand each other. And they don't know what the other's doing. They just know that like something happened in their home and all of a sudden everything got disrupted and they're trying to figure out how to deal with that and how they kind of find that bridge back together at the end. It's cool.
That is cool. What was that book called?
It's going to be called Standing Water.
Standing Water. Mm-hmm. That sounds really interesting. It sounds like a good movie.
Yeah. So the cool thing about like the way that I write is, but I think is I write cinematically. Like and I only know that because I listen to podcasts still. Yeah. All the time. Yeah. And they were just talking about that about one of the authors that was what did she write? The girl who wrote Gone Girl actually was doing a podcast, and she was being interviewed, and she said she used to be a film critic and she grew up with a film producer family. Wow. And so she writes books, she visualizes them, and I'm like, that's what I do too. Like I write for this to be turned into a movie easily. Like,
do you have plans for that?
I don't.
You seem like somebody who's like always constantly thinking about how to take it to the next level.
Yeah. So my strategy is in publishing right now. The gatekeepers in publishing it, that's all changed. So it used to be you had to go out and find an agent. The agent would shop your book around. Now you can just publish straight to Amazon or Barnes and Noble or and Kindle or whatever. I want my books to be as solid as they can be. And I know, like, they always say that your first book's the worst book you're going to write. But I'm like, I don't want people to, like, read it. That's why I rewrote it and fixed the cover. Because I knew, I'm like, I'm not going to go back and revisit it again, but I got to at least, like, give it one more. You know, that's why I'm doing it with Harris. Because by the time I get those 3 done, I want all 3 of them to be good. Yeah. You know? Yeah. But the trick to being an indie author is really having a backlist. And there's a whole industry. It's crazy. Like, there are women who write smutty romance, and they're churning out books like that, and they're making bank.
Really?
Yeah, because all these girls are sitting around on their Kindle Unlimited reading smutty romance. I know, and I don't want to write smutty romance. Mine is a little spicy. I like the lead up, little drunk, dancing. Right. A
little tease.
Yes, but not like the whole like
picture, not the whole 50 Shades of Grey thing.
The fade to black. Yeah. So, but there's like a whole program where it's like 20 books to 50K, right? So if you but you got to get a backlist, and what's happening right now is if you go traditionally published, you think you become like this rich and famous person, but you don't, because they only really advertise your book the first month. And now they're going to be expecting you to advertise your own books. Well, why would you give them almost all the money? Right. You have to advertise it anyway. Right. And do all the same things that I had to do. Yeah. But and I'm really busy with real estate and my kids and stuff. So I'm trying to figure out how to I want to build my backlist as quickly as I can. And so I haven't done a ton of this. Is like the first time I've come on and talked to something about my book. Really? Yeah, because I want to have that backlist, right? Yeah. So I talked to somebody who does publicity stuff. So I'm thinking like in the fall, once I have all 3 of these books done, and then hopefully my Sally and Pearl book done, do like a book tour. Because then you'll have all 3, and then you'll be able to, you know what I mean? Like start to build that. So I'm kind of like undercover, just learning the craft. Right. Yeah. And paying for my learning. You know what I mean? Because you pay for covers and editing, making mistakes.
It can't be cheap, right?
So
to create a book.
You know what? You can do it for free, but it might suck. You know, like I wanted a really good cover, so I paid probably $400 for this cover. Wow! But I own it. I can use it, and it's custom. You can go on and get pre-made covers for $125. Okay. But and really the covers depend on the genre. Like in the smutty romance, you just need a hot guy on the cover. So you get some clip art, throw a hot guy on the cover. Right. But I wanted something that was not that. Yeah. And I'd go into the bookstore and I love to read, and I'd look at what the other covers too didn't fit on the romance table. Like I put them on there and I'm like, well, that doesn't fit, but this kind of does. And it says it's not totally romance, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah. It seems soft.
Yeah.
You know, like you're not reading like a pornographic
no,
book.
It's just kind of fun, a little suspense.
Yeah.
So, and I really wanted it to, so you have to know your genre. And I didn't even know what genres were. I was like, I don't know what genre my book is. I'm just writing something.
Yeah.
So you have to learn all of that. And really, like, I've spent the last year getting a master's in fine arts, you know, so, and I made the mistake of paying for an editor who sucked and, like, should have caught stuff for this book and, didn't.
Oh my God.
And you just don't know though, right? Like, and,
so do you edit everything then?
Do I personally edit it?
Yeah. Or
so
do you have somebody else
at
that does it
first
now?
it was a hot mess because I did all talk to text and it was just like I dumped it in and I'm like, and I don't like going back over details. So I'm like, meh. The Sally and Pearl book that I'm writing now, I'm actually like doing a little bit better with filling it out and getting it right.
Okay.
You know, as I go. So I don't have such like an overwhelming like hot mess.
Right.
Of trying to like decipher what the heck I was talking about. So I have an editor. My mom does proofread. I pay her to proofread because she's like detail oriented. But there's 3 different kinds of editing. There's line editing, there's content editing, and there's proofreading. So I have beta readers who will read through and kind of tell me, hey, you know, this doesn't make sense. There's a gap here. You missed something. But yeah, I definitely have other people read it because I'll miss stuff. Now,
somebody who is as busy as you are with working all the time and obviously have a hobby that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
I know from experience because I do the podcast and that takes a lot of my time.
Yes.
How do you manage your time with writing and you okay over there?
Yeah, I have a cold. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
It's not COVID. I've been tested like 8,000 times.
You're good.
It's just a cold.
No, you're fine. How do you manage your time? How do you like set aside time every day to sit down and write? Obviously you say you talk in your phone while you're driving.
So I don't really manage my time well. Like that's the short answer. I don't. Like I was going on a big writing kick because real estate tends to ebb and flow. So I take advantage of it when it's slower.
Yeah.
But it's been so busy the last month. So I've resorted back to talk to text.
Okay.
So.
Now I know like with me, whenever I'm not working and I'm home or whatever.
Sorry, I'm gonna step over here just for a second and cough.
Okay, you're good.
Go ahead, you keep talking.
I know like for me, whenever I'm not at work and I'm home and I'm not doing podcast stuff, I feel guilty because I'm like, I should be doing something to better the podcast or to edit or whatever it is. Do you get that when you're not writing?
Yes, I do. Sorry, I have such a.
You're okay.
Gosh. I do.
You don't have to get up next time. Just swing the mic away when.
Swing it that way.
Yeah.
All right, hold on. Goodness. I should have taken my cold medicine before I came. Yes, there's always something to be doing, but it doesn't always need to be writing. So I'll put on a podcast. It's all about perfecting your craft, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's the same thing with this and with this, because listening to other podcasts, learning how to do interviews, guests, setup, all that adds value to your product. So, and I read too. Like, do you listen to podcasts too?
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every day, all day.
So I read all the time because I learn from other authors and like just the way they describe things.
Yeah.
And it's so cool. And the patterns, like, I sat yesterday, and I just listened to previews of books on Audible. Because you can listen to the preview.
Yeah.
And I was just listening to how they did, the tempo of the book. Like, how they use sentence structure and language, especially, like, to suck you in. Because really, with books now, you have to have a hook for your book.
Yeah.
Same thing with, like, marketing. We have, like, a 3-second memory.
Yeah.
So, you have to have a hook, and you have to understand what that hook is and be able to sell it to people, right?
Yeah.
And at first, like, I was like, oh, well, it's about this girl named Callie, and I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know how to tell you what it was about.
Right.
So, but I do always feel like I want to be doing this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do. I love it. And it's, I want to get like it done so I can have this backlist. And there's just no way to do it fast.
Yeah. It takes time.
It does. I mean, some women will sit and they crank out these books, like really fast. Like they'll write a book a month or something. But when you find out, when you get down into the brass tacks, they're not having a custom cover. They're just going to find something and do it really quick. They may not have it edited really, really well. And it may be short.
Yeah.
Because there's also industry standards for length.
Yeah.
So,
that's one thing that, like with podcasting, I've had to learn, like, you know, like exactly like what you had mentioned, you know, when you want to start something and you have no experience in that field, you have to research it like crazy. You have to listen to the pros, listen how other people do it. And you have to find what works for you also, because the way they do it might not work for you, but you got to like learn from how they do it to figure out what works and what doesn't.
And I love that phase of building because you can get away with anything.
You really can.
Like you can just do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And you don't even have anybody, you haven't been around long enough for someone to tell you that that's not the right way to do it.
Right.
And I didn't want to ask permission. It's not like I think I'm above like going traditional publishing.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like waiting around for someone to tell me that it was okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to just do it. And I knew that if I put it out there and I had to fix it later, I didn't care.
Yeah.
I'm just learning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's still more than what anybody else has done.
yeah. Well, and you know, they say with podcasts, you have to do like 100 episodes.
Yeah.
Just to figure out what the heck you're doing.
Yeah.
Which
I'm still figuring out what I'm doing.
Yeah. That's why I don't do podcasts, because this is like a whole
I think you should do a podcast.
Oh my gosh. Well, maybe someday.
You're really smart, and
Thank
you. you're obviously really easy to talk to, and you have a lot of different backgrounds. You could talk about so much. You could talk about the real estate industry. You could talk about the political realm.
Yeah.
It's so exhausting.
Fun. Yeah. So, it's been really fun though. Like I think and the other thing that is interesting about the book business right now is that they're doing print on demand. So like if you order this off of Amazon,
they just print it.
They just print it and send it to you. And you can get it like the next day.
Wow.
It's crazy.
That is crazy.
I know.
That's so insane.
And so I have it on Audible, Kindle, and you can buy this. I don't do hard copies because I tried to, but I didn't feel like messing with the cover.
Who buys hard copies?
Well, I don't know. People do.
It used to be a thing.
Well, it is still. Like,
is it?
Like there's like this whole Bookstagram and Book Talk. Like, I don't know if you're on TikTok at all.
I am.
So I have a pretty good TikTok following, which is weird because I don't really have a niche. Like, I literally don't. Like, I even tried to make a niche about a niche, but then I got distracted. So, but Book Talk is like, they can make or break you. But I'm not going anywhere near Book Talk until I have like my Sally and Pearl book in the back of my mind. Like, I feel like that's the one that's going to be like, this is practice.
Right.
And these will be good and they'll be fun.
Yeah.
But that one, is so funny. Like these girls, I mean, they're going to do tequila shots, like literally, Pearl's out. She's like this shorter lady and she's out feeding the fish and this pelican comes down and tries to get one of the fish and she just punches it. They get in a high speed chase on a golf cart.
Wow.
It's going to be so fun. And, I just think that it's the right time for that book.
Yeah.
So,
especially coming out of a pandemic, like people need something to escape reality and to just forget about things and have a good laugh.
Well, and all the baby boomers are getting old. Like I'm not a baby. My kids call me boomer, but I'm Gen X all the way, baby. But
I just had a guy on the podcast the other day with a friend. They're both coworkers. And he's a younger guy, and he's making fun of the older guy. He's calling him boomer and everything, but yeah, he's also a Gen X.
Yeah, it's like
so it's a thing apparently.
Well, we don't even exist. Like if you see the generational things, they'll just boomer,
skip
millennial.
Right over you.
Yeah, like we don't even exist in like at academia. But all those baby boomers are getting older, and the thing about baby boomers, and this is where like all the marketing and stuff like that I've had to do throughout the years. The thing about baby boomers is they are all about self-actualization. Like, they're not going to retire. They're going to be taking cooking classes. That's why they're all cruising instead of like, I mean, I love cruises, like, but they're cruising instead of going to the retirement home. That's why the Villages is a wild place, right? Because they're all self-actualizing.
Right.
So to give them something, and it's funny to read about as even a young person, it's a very strange time because like there's this TikTok girl I just was watching where she's like, grandmas, like they're pretending to be grandmas, like they're idolizing like these Diane Keaton in these movies when they're older, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like you're wearing turtlenecks and you're acting like you're in Nantucket and you're like old. All right, but it's weird, right? And then meanwhile the old people are trying to act young,
right? So
I could probably, I think it might be a sweet spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it might be.
It's like that 1,500 square foot 3-2 ranch right now. This book might be
Just
that.
Swapping spots.
Yeah. So.
That's awesome. Now, how many books did you say you're writing again?
So I have 2.
2, okay.
And then I have 3 more. So I have Dionysus, Dethroning Dionysus.
Okay.
I have Standing Water. And I have Stallion Pearl.
And I was looking at your website. You have one that I can't remember what it was called. It's something about God, right?
So Gods on Earth is a series.
Okay.
Is this series? There'll be 3 of them. I originally was going to write 7, but I kind of got bored. I might go back. We'll see how they do. Okay. Because I really haven't even done any marketing or anything like that. So, because I want to get them right first, right? Yeah. I don't want to go out there and march around the world with something that needs work. Yeah. So, as soon as I get the 3 done and they're done solid, if they take off, I have more. Like I have a few more that I want to write about. But I'm going to wait and see. So, especially because I love Standing Water. I'm super excited about that book and Stallion Pearl. So, we'll see.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And these are available on YouTube, or not YouTube, Amazon, sorry.
Yes.
And also on Amazon, on
Audible,
Kindle.
Amazon, Kindle Unlimited.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And people can find you on TikTok.
Yep.
Okay. What's your TikTok?
Right now it's Messy Michigan Mom.
What do you talk about on TikTok? What do you do?
Well, again,
you don't have a niche, but
I was really funny during the pandemic because there's nothing else to do. I have some like winner. My most viral video was one that my husband and I made over Christmas because we got this wine holder thing that we couldn't figure out how to use, and we got like 1.5 million views just on this dumb little wine thing that we couldn't figure out how to use. I know I think I have like, let me see how many followers I have. I have I'll tell you. Let me to do it without like making all this noise. But, okay. So I have like almost 8,000 followers.
Wow.
With 0 niche.
Wow.
So I'm
just
like
random stuff.
Totally random. Like me working on my hot tub. Basically, if I'm being stupid, like trying to wax my legs the first time and it was a hot mess. Like trying to wallpaper and it looked terrible, so they tried to paint it. And everyone was like ripping on me. Trying to like de-thaw our hot tub, our Coleman blow up hot tub or whatever, the Intex blow up hot tub. Yeah, it was a block of ice and I'm out there trying to dump hot water on it, anyway.
That is funny. Yeah, I've never really got into like that, I guess that aspect of TikTok. I guess what I do is I just take clips from the episodes and I'll post them on TikTok and that's it. Like I don't really do anything. I don't really have a following on TikTok, but.
Well, it's good to have the presence there though. And I think one thing with TikTok that's going to be interesting is I just saw last night that, cause I couldn't sleep, but they're in some kind of legal issue with music that as of like April, I can't remember what it said, but something like, April 22nd or something, they're going to pull down all the music off of TikTok. That's that's the whole app.
Yeah.
So I think they're probably like, hopefully they'll fix it before then.
I hope so.
I know. Cause I'm like, that's going to be like, I don't do mostly music stuff, but I add it to the background. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do too. I edit and put music to it. Yeah. I did have an episode that was, a video that was taken down for some reason because it had music. But it's the same music I always had. So I'm like,
weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I have Instagram. I have a good Facebook following. Okay. Instagram, I don't really understand how to use. Like I did some experiments and I didn't want to take pictures of myself anymore.
Just take pictures of your books and
I know, but people
writing.
are like, but the ones that got like the best views are stupid pictures of myself with filters. You know what I mean? Where I look like,
People like seeing your face, I guess.
I don't even know. Well, I read this thing like women over like, 40, that's all they do is take selfies. And I'm like,
what?
I don't want to be that girl.
Really?
Yeah. So then I started taking pictures of everything else besides myself. Nobody cared. Took pictures of myself. And I'm like, well, that's why we're taking pictures of ourselves because people like it. Anyway, it's been interesting. I mean, you know, with anything, there's like, you learn how to do the craft. You got to learn the technology. You got to learn the systems. You got to learn how to market it.
Yeah.
There's just, it's a good amount of learning.
You're always learning too. That's one thing I find, like for me with a podcast, I'm always constantly going to YouTube. Like, how can I grow my YouTube channel? How can I grow my TikTok following? How can I grow my Facebook? Like, you literally have to learn how to operate every single platform, at least for me, every single platform, and then learn how to do the craft as well.
Yeah, I know. And it's but we live in such an entrepreneurial age.
We really do.
Like a decentralized age where you can go out and you can learn anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote a book. Like, I wrote a book in a year. Like, I wrote 2 books in a year. Well, actually 3. Because I didn't get the other one published, but I published 2 books in like a year. Who does that? Like, I didn't know. And that's not because I'm special. It's just you go out, all the information's there.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, like, then you see, like, CMU, you know, their enrollment rate's down 43%. I'm like, yeah. Because I don't need to spend $70,000
to learn
how to be a writer.
Yeah.
And go listen to podcasts and write a book.
Yeah. You really can get an education online.
I know.
It's really insane. Like, I've learned how to do like you commented on the front of the house. All that stone I learned how to do myself.
Yeah,
I did that myself. Everything in the house pretty much I've done myself.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. My son is going to school for computer programming, but he even took like a class through Google or something to get like a certificate.
Wow.
That's going to help him get a job faster.
I didn't know you could do that. Wow.
You can get marketing certificates through Google too, which is very interesting.
That is interesting.
And through Amazon.
Wow.
It's crazy. I know.
It is crazy.
So anyway, I'm just going to keep writing and.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So.
Have you had a lot of people buy your book?
I've sold about 200 or 300 copies.
Well, that's really good.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you know, I'm hoping that like eventually I feel like I'm paying for my education. But there are people who are making really good money doing this. But you have to, and so the other thing that's interesting about the self-publishing market or the indie publishing is writing to market. So like, you know, you have a book you want to sell and a story you want to tell, or you can go and literally they have all the research out there for you. There's people that are putting it together. You can find out what's selling, what the top tropes are. And a trope is like a typical storyline, you know what I mean? What the top elements are. Like if it's like a, you know, like a enemies to lovers romance, or like, you know, if it is, do they want smut? You can find out what's selling and then just write your book to that and sneak in there. You know, they don't usually advise that because you might take so long to write your book that now they're onto something else. Is it vampires? Is it whatever, right?
Yeah.
Dystopia was all the rage. And then it wasn't for a while.
Yeah.
And now it's starting to come back a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you can write fast and write to market, or if you have books that you can hold on to and then push back out, you can make really like good money. It's crazy.
Is that something you've done?
What?
Book
to market?
Yeah, book to market.
No. I haven't been doing it long enough.
You just kind of do what you want to write and then.
Well, and you know what's funny is that I have the way that my brain works, like I think my brain recognizes trends just naturally. And I'm on TikTok and I'm plugged into Book Talk, so I'm paying attention to what they're doing and I'm reading all the stuff. So, and I do look at the keywords and I do look at, you know, but I'm like, there's certain things I don't want to write. Like I don't want to write smut.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and I have like the sixth sense that mythology is popular. Mythology is going to continue to be popular.
I think mythology's always kind of been popular.
Well, not with like modern day mythology. Like that mythology has, but if you look at mythology books, there's not that many.
No.
But there's been like a few that have done really well this last year. So in fiction.
Okay.
Besides like Percy Jackson, right? Like, but I'm talking like
I love those books. When I was a
everybody
kid,
does,
I read
right?
those.
So, but outside of that, there's not that many. I mean, and then I do think that like the Sally and Pearl. In fact, it's funny because I started writing notes down, and then I like was listening to a podcast where they were talking to an like an agent, and she's like, "Bring me something that's like," and she just described Sally and Pearl, and I'm like, "I'm gonna have it. I just gotta finish writing it." So, you know.
So, what's your plans for that when you finish that? Are you gonna try to market that pretty heavily?
Yeah. So, I want to get all 5 of the books done.
Yeah.
And then
you're gonna do the book tour.
Mm-hmm. And really, like, I'm just gonna see once they're all done and out there, then I can start to really like do the book tour. You know, I don't know yet. Like but I know that I think Sally and Pearl is gonna be the one that like I put on like I put like a chapter online on my Facebook page, and everyone's like, I would read that. I absolutely, yes, 100%. And everybody I talk to, they're excited about it and they're interested in it. So, yeah.
That's cool.
So if you know you're meeting a need, right?
Yeah.
If that's the immediate response is yes, please give it to me.
Yeah.
Then because Steady Water is like, actually people are like excited about that one too. Like could just be my friend circle, but they're like, oh yeah,
I mean, what you explained to me, it sounds interesting. I would read it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. It's going to be very interesting, and I think it was cool, like because they're not in survival mode necessarily, but it's this weird like some of the world's okay, some of the world's not okay.
Yeah.
And what it actually looks like and feels like in your life. Like the crock pot, like they talk about how they walks in and they smell the crock pot roast, right? Well, that's like an anomaly because you can't, if the electricity's going on and off, you can't count on a crock pot, right? So,
right.
And they go shopping and how that works. And it's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially coming, like we said earlier, coming out of COVID and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody kind of thought everybody was going to die, so it would have been like an apocalyptic type of event.
Oh, I found out about COVID January 24th. My son called me. We were on our way back from Mexico, and he called me and said, because I have a little bit of a prepper, like girl, and I'm a Girl Scout, and he said, we're gonna have to pack up and go to grandma's, and I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like there's this fire is coming because he always watches like YouTube. He's like in,
right.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? So he starts telling me, and I start looking, and I'm like watching this stuff come out of China, like, and I found a couple news sources that were coming out of China, and everybody thought I was crazy. All of February, they were rolling their eyes, laughing at me. I'm like buying masks, and I'm watching Contagion, looking for looking for hints and tips about what I should have in my house. I'm buying like pulse oximeters, extra ones.
Wow.
Well, because there was like a lady who owns she's a realtor, but she owns an advanced medical equipment thing, and they didn't have N95 masks because they never had needed them.
Yeah.
And then you couldn't get them.
Right.
And I remember early February going to CVS saying, do you guys have any surgical masks? I was just curious. They're like, no. And in fact, all the warehouse, they're not making anymore. The factories are shut down, and the warehouse has been emptied and rediverted back to China. There's nothing. And we won't have them anytime for the foreseeable future. And I was like, I felt like I was watching like stuff unfold when nobody else was paying attention.
Yeah.
And they like literally, and I got a sewing machine, fabric. I'm like watching these videos from Asia, watching how to make
masks.
Make masks with different filters. I'm trying to figure it all out at home, and everyone's like, you're crazy, and
you could have sold those
masks.
Yeah.
So actually what I did is I just gave them away.
Oh, cool.
But for real estate, like it was a really good outreach.
Yeah.
I did look like a drug dealer though, because if you came out my back, Mike, I had this railing and I had bags of, I like masks, like clipped to the thing. People were coming in and out, constantly grabbing them.
Wow.
And, yeah, so it's been an interesting thing. I don't know. It's interesting. So hopefully standing water is not prophetic, but I think in some ways it is, because there is going to be a water shortage, and Michigan is going to be at the center of that because we have the largest amount of fresh water in the country. So buckle up. It's a good place to live.
Yeah. Wonderful place.
Totally. Yeah. Lots of lakes.
Well, is there anything else you want to talk about, mention on the podcast? No.
I don't think so. They can go to like readwendyday.com.
Okay.
And brickandbeam.com is our real estate site. We do serve Lansing, and again, we help people, we will get you the house you want and work with you to do that. And then we can also get you top dollar for your house. So, or they can go buy my book and read it.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Definitely buy the book and read it.
Yeah. 100%.
I'll put all the links in the show notes and whatnot. So,
okay.
Just go there. I'm glad you didn't die on the podcast. That would have been bad.
It's like, it's weird because like you would think I had pneumonia or something, and it's like just my stupid upper airway. It's like it's so dumb, and then I'm like, I look like I'm choking to death. I'm like, I'm fine. Just give me a minute.
All right, Wendy. Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Yep.